Maria Rodriguez grew up in a small town in Texas where everyone knew everyone else's business. Her father worked at the local auto repair shop, and her mother cleaned houses for the wealthy families on the other side of town. Money was always tight in their household, but Maria's parents made sure she understood the value of hard work and determination. From a young age, Maria was different from other girls her age. While her classmates played with dolls and talked about boys, Maria spent her afternoons hunting with her grandfather in the hills behind their house. Her grandfather, a Vietnam War veteran, taught her how to hold a rifle properly, how to control her breathing, and most importantly, how to be patient and focused. A good shot isn't about being lucky, her grandfather would tell her as they sat quietly in their hunting blind. It's about understanding your weapon, knowing the wind, and having the discipline to wait for the perfect moment. Maria absorbed these lessons like a sponge. By the time she was 12, she could hit a target at 200 meters with her grandfather's old hunting rifle. Her accuracy was so impressive that word spread through their small community. Some people were amazed by her skill, but others weren't so supportive. At school, Maria faced constant teasing from her classmates. The boys laughed at her for being interested in guns instead of makeup. They called her names like Army Girl and Tomboy in a way that wasn't meant to be kind. The girls were even worse sometimes, whispering behind her back about how she was trying too hard to get attention from the boys. Why can't you just be normal? Her classmate Jennifer once asked her during lunch. Girls aren't supposed to be obsessed with guns and fighting. Maria didn't let the comments bother her too much, but they did plant a seed of doubt in her mind. She began to wonder if there was something wrong with her for being so different from everyone else. Her parents noticed she was becoming quieter and more withdrawn. One evening while they were eating dinner, Maria's father put down his fork and looked at her seriously. Maria, your mother and I have been talking. We know the kids at school have been giving you a hard time about your shooting. Maria nodded, not trusting herself to speak without getting emotional. Listen to me carefully, her father continued. There is nothing wrong with being different. There is nothing wrong with being good at something that other people don't understand. Your grandfather sees something special in you, and so do we. Her mother reached across the table and squeezed Maria's hand. Some people are afraid of what they don't understand, mija. But that doesn't mean you should change who you are to make them comfortable. These words gave Maria the strength she needed to keep pursuing her passion. She continued hunting with her grandfather and practicing her shooting skills. By high school, she had joined the school's rifle team and was winning competitions across the state. Her success on the rifle team began to change how some people saw her. The school newspaper wrote articles about her victories, and local businesses started sponsoring her equipment. But the attention also brought new challenges. Some of her male teammates resented having a girl on the team who was better than them. During practice, they would make jokes about how she was probably cheating or getting special treatment from the coach. They questioned whether girls should even be allowed to compete with boys in shooting sports. She's just trying to prove something, she overheard one of them saying after practice one day. Girls aren't built for this kind of thing. She'll burn out eventually. Maria's coach, Mr. Thompson, was a former Marine who recognized her potential. He pulled her aside after that particular practice session. Maria, I've been coaching for 15 years and I've never seen natural talent like yours, he told her. But talent alone isn't enough. You need to develop mental toughness to go with that skill. People are always going to doubt you because you're different. The question is, are you going to let their doubt define you, or are you going to use it as fuel to prove them wrong? That conversation was a turning point for Maria. She began to see the criticism and doubt as challenges to overcome, rather than obstacles that might stop her. She started training harder, studying ballistics and meteorology to understand how weather conditions affected her shots. She read everything she could find about famous snipers throughout history. During her senior year, a military recruiter visited her school. When he heard about Maria's shooting abilities, he approached her about joining the Navy after graduation. The idea intrigued her, but she knew it would be another battle against people's expectations. The military isn't a place for girls like you, her guidance counselor warned her. It's dangerous and you'll be surrounded by men who won't accept you. Why don't you consider college instead? Maybe study to be a teacher or a nurse. But Maria had made up her mind. She wanted to serve her country and push herself to see how far her skills could take her. Her parents were nervous but supportive. Her grandfather was proud beyond words. You've got what it takes, Maria, he told her the night before she left for basic training. But remember, it's not just about being the best shot. It's about being someone others can depend on when everything goes wrong. The day she graduated high school, Maria signed her enlistment papers. She was determined to prove that a girl from a small Texas town could excel in one of the most challenging and demanding fields in the military. As she packed her bags for boot camp, Maria thought about all the people who had doubted her along the way. She thought about the classmates who had mocked her interests, the teammates who questioned her abilities, and the adults who tried to steer her toward more appropriate paths. She wasn't angry with them anymore. In fact, she was almost grateful. Their doubt had pushed her to work harder and dream bigger than she might have otherwise. Now, as she prepared to begin the next chapter of her life, Maria knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The military would test her in ways she couldn't even imagine yet, but she was ready to prove that sometimes the people others underestimate can achieve the most extraordinary things. Boot camp was unlike anything Maria had ever experienced. The moment she stepped off the bus at the Naval Station Great Lakes in Illinois, she knew her life would never be the same. The drill instructors were screaming, recruits were running in every direction, and the chaos was overwhelming. Maria quickly learned that her small-town shooting skills meant nothing if she couldn't handle the physical and mental demands of military training. The first few weeks were brutal. She was exhausted, homesick, and beginning to wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. The other recruits in her company came from all walks of life. There were big city kids who had never seen a gun before, farm boys who thought they knew everything about firearms, and college graduates who joined for the educational benefits. What they all had in common was their skepticism about Maria. "Look at little Texas girl," one recruit named Johnson would whisper during formation. "Bet she's crying for her mommy right now." Maria's bunkmate, a girl named Ashley from California, seemed friendly at first but turned out to be one of her harshest critics. "I don't understand why you're here," Ashley said one night as they cleaned their rifles. "You could have gone to college, gotten married, had a normal life. Instead, you're here trying to play soldier with a bunch of guys who are never going to respect you." The physical training was demanding, but Maria discovered she was stronger than she had given herself credit for. Years of hunting in rough terrain had built up her endurance and leg strength. She could keep up with most of the men in her company during runs and obstacle courses. But it was the weapons training where Maria truly began to stand out. When their company first went to the shooting range, the drill instructors were skeptical about the recruits' abilities. Most of them had never handled military-grade weapons before. "All right, ladies and gentlemen," Petty Officer Davis shouted as they lined up at the firing line. "This is an M16A4. It's not your daddy's hunting rifle, and it's not a video game. If you can't respect this weapon, it will hurt you." Maria listened carefully as Davis explained the proper stance, grip, and sight alignment. When it was time to fire, she fell into the familiar rhythm she had learned from her grandfather. Breathe in, breathe out halfway. Hold, squeeze the trigger slowly. Follow through. Her first shot hit the center of the target at 200 meters. Her second shot was even closer to the bullseye. By the end of the session, she had achieved a perfect score, something that rarely happened with new recruits. Davis walked over to examine her target, his expression unreadable. "Rodriguez, where did you learn to shoot like that?" "My grandfather taught me, sir," Maria replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Your grandfather did good work," Davis said loud enough for the other recruits to hear. "This is what a perfect score looks like, people. Study it." Word about Maria's shooting ability spread quickly through the training command. Some recruits began to show her more respect, asking for tips and advice during weapons training, but others became even more resentful. "She's just showing off," Johnson complained to his friends. "Probably had some special training before she got here. It's not fair to the rest of us." Maria tried to ignore the jealousy and focus on her training. She excelled in every aspect of marksmanship, from basic rifle skills to advanced shooting positions. Her instructors began to take special notice of her performance. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging shooting exercise, Petty Officer Davis pulled Maria aside. "Rodriguez, have you given any thought to what you want to do in the Navy?" Maria had been thinking about this question for weeks. She knew she wanted to continue developing her shooting skills, but she wasn't sure what opportunities were available to her. "I'd like to do something that uses my marksmanship abilities, sir," she replied honestly. Davis nodded thoughtfully. "There are several paths you could take. Security forces, special operations support, maybe even sniper training down the road. But I have to warn you, some of those fields are still pretty resistant to having women in them. I'm used to that, sir, Maria said. I've been dealing with people who don't think I belong somewhere my whole life. That's the attitude you'll need, Davis said. Because if you're serious about pushing your skills to the next level, you're going to face more resistance than you can imagine. As boot camp progressed, Maria continued to excel. She finished at the top of her class in weapons training and performed well in all other areas of military instruction. Her confidence began to grow, and she started to believe that maybe she really did belong in the military. During the final week of boot camp, the recruits were given their assignments for follow-on training. Maria had requested to be sent to specialized security training, hoping to eventually qualify for more advanced marksmanship programs. When the assignments were read aloud, Maria was assigned to master-at-arms training, which would prepare her for security and law enforcement duties in the Navy. It wasn't exactly what she had hoped for, but it was a step in the right direction. Some of her fellow recruits weren't happy about her assignment. Of course she gets the cool job, Ashley muttered. Probably slept her way into it. Maria felt her face flush with anger, but she remembered her grandfather's lessons about patience and discipline. Getting into a fight during the last week of boot camp would ruin everything she had worked for. That night, she called home for the first time in weeks. Her grandfather's voice on the phone brought tears to her eyes. "I'm proud of you, Maria," he said. "I knew you had what it takes to succeed." "It's been harder than I expected, Grandpa," she admitted. "Some people here don't think I belong." "Listen to me carefully," her grandfather said. "Every great marksman I ever knew faced doubt and criticism. The difference between the good ones and the great ones is how they respond to that pressure. Are you going to let other people's opinions define what you can accomplish?" "No, sir," Maria replied, feeling her determination renewed. "Good. Because from what I'm hearing, you're just getting started. The real challenges are still ahead of you." At graduation, Maria stood proudly with her company as they received their Navy designations. She had made it through one of the most challenging experiences of her life and proved to herself that she could handle whatever the military threw at her. But as she prepared for her next phase of training, Maria knew that boot camp had been just the beginning. If she wanted to achieve her dream of becoming an elite marksman, she would need to push herself even harder and face even more skepticism from people who didn't believe a woman belonged in that world. The path ahead would test everything she had learned about persistence, skill, and mental toughness, but Maria was ready for the challenge. Master-at-Arms School in San Antonio, Texas felt like coming home for Maria, but the familiar landscape was about the only comfortable thing about her new training environment. The school was designed to prepare Navy personnel for security and law enforcement duties, and the competition was fierce. Maria's class consisted of 30 sailors, and she was one of only 3 women. The other 2 women, Karen and Lisa, seemed more interested in getting through the training than excelling at it. They were friendly enough, but they didn't share Maria's passion for pushing the limits of marksmanship. The men in her class ranged from supportive to openly hostile about having women in their ranks. Some, like Petty Officer 2nd Class Mike Torres, seemed genuinely impressed by Maria's shooting abilities and treated her as an equal. Others, like Petty Officer 3rd Class Brad Coleman, made it clear they thought women had no place in security operations. "I don't care how well she can shoot at targets," Coleman said loudly during their first week, making sure Maria could hear him. "When bullets start flying for real, she's going to fold like a lawn chair. Women don't have what it takes for combat situations." The instructors at MA school were professional but demanding. Chief Petty Officer Williams, a 20-year veteran with multiple combat deployments, ran the marksmanship portion of their training with military precision. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chief Williams announced on their first day at the range, "some of you think you can shoot because you did well in boot camp. Let me disabuse you of that notion right now. Boot camp taught you the basics. Here we're going to teach you to be warriors." The training was immediately more challenging than anything Maria had experienced. They learned to shoot from multiple positions, under stress in low-light conditions and while moving. They practiced with various weapon systems, from pistols to rifles to crew-served weapons. Maria excelled in every phase of the training. Her natural ability, combined with years of practice with her grandfather, gave her a significant advantage over most of her classmates. But instead of making things easier, her success seemed to create more problems. During a particularly challenging exercise involving shooting while moving through an obstacle course, Maria achieved the highest score in the class. As the instructors were reviewing everyone's performance, Coleman made a comment that echoed what many others were thinking. "Must be nice to have all that extra practice time," he said, just loud enough for the group to hear. "Some of us have other duties to take care of." The implication was clear. Coleman thought Maria was receiving special treatment or additional training that gave her an unfair advantage. Chief Williams overheard the comment and addressed it immediately. "Coleman, Rodriguez's performance has nothing to do with extra practice time and everything to do with natural talent and hard work. If you spent less time complaining and more time improving your own skills, maybe you'd see better results." This public correction only made Coleman and his supporters more resentful. They began to isolate Maria socially, excluding her from group conversations and activities outside of training. Some of them started rumors that she was receiving help from instructors or that her scores were being inflated. Maria found herself in a difficult position. She could either dial back her performance to avoid standing out, or continue excelling and deal with the social consequences. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her head, "Never make yourself smaller to make others comfortable." She chose to keep pushing herself to excel. During the middle of their training program, the class was introduced to advanced sniper techniques. This was where Maria truly began to separate herself from her peers. The precision required for long-distance shooting seemed to come naturally to her, while many of her classmates struggled with the complex calculations and minute adjustments necessary for accuracy at extended ranges. Chief Williams pulled Maria aside after a particularly impressive performance at 600 meters. "Rodriguez, have you ever considered applying for sniper school?" Maria's heart raced with excitement, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "I've thought about it, Chief, but I wasn't sure if it was realistic." "Let me be straight with you," Williams said. "Navy SEAL sniper training is probably the most challenging marksmanship program in the world. The physical demands are extreme, the mental pressure is unrelenting, and frankly, they've never had a woman complete the program." "Does that mean they won't let me try?" Maria asked. "It means you'll be fighting an uphill battle from day one. Every instructor, every classmate, and every superior officer will be watching to see if you can handle it. You'll need to be not just as good as the men but better, just to be taken seriously." Maria thought about this conversation for days. She knew that applying for SEAL sniper training would be the ultimate test of everything she had learned about persistence and mental toughness. It would also expose her to a level of scrutiny and criticism that would make her current challenges seem minor by comparison. Meanwhile, the rumors about her performance continued to circulate. Some classmates suggested she was only doing well because the standards were being lowered for women. Others claimed she was getting answers to tests in advance or receiving special coaching. The breaking point came during a combat simulation exercise. The class was divided into teams and tasked with completing a series of security scenarios under time pressure. Maria's team was assigned to neutralize targets while protecting a VIP in a mock hostage situation. When the exercise began, Maria quickly identified the optimal shooting positions and began engaging targets with precision and speed. Her team completed the exercise faster and with better accuracy than any other group. Instead of congratulating her team's success, several classmates immediately began questioning the results. Coleman was the most vocal in his complaints. "There's no way they completed that course legitimately," he said to anyone who would listen. "Someone must have given them inside information or made it easier for them." This time, Maria had had enough. She walked directly up to Coleman, with the rest of the class watching. "If you have a problem with my performance, say it to my face instead of spreading rumors behind my back," she said firmly. Coleman seemed surprised by her direct confrontation but quickly recovered. "Fine. I think you're getting special treatment because you're a woman, and I think your scores are inflated to make the Navy look progressive." "Then let's settle this right now," Maria replied. "Pick any shooting challenge you want. Same conditions for both of us. Winner takes all, loser stops talking." The challenge was set for the following day. A precision shooting contest at 800 meters, 10 shots each, no spotting assistance. Word spread quickly through the school, and even some instructors came to watch the unofficial competition. As Maria prepared for the challenge that would either validate her abilities or undermine everything she had worked for, she realized this moment represented more than just her personal reputation. She was shooting not just for herself, but for every woman who had been told she didn't belong in a traditionally male field. The pressure was enormous, but Maria had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Win or lose, she was going to show everyone exactly what she was capable of achieving. The morning of the shooting challenge, Maria woke up before dawn. She had barely slept, not because of nerves, but because her mind was focused on the technical aspects of the shot. 800 meters was a significant distance, and she needed to account for wind, temperature, humidity, and the specific characteristics of the rifle she would be using. By the time she arrived at the range, word had spread throughout the entire school. What started as a personal dispute between two classmates had turned into an event that would be talked about for years. Instructors, students from other classes, and even some base personnel had gathered to watch. Chief Williams approached Maria as she was checking her equipment. "Rodriguez, you don't have to do this. Coleman is just trying to get under your skin." "With respect, Chief, I do have to do this," Maria replied. "Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been told they don't belong somewhere because of who they are." Coleman arrived looking confident and relaxed. He had been bragging to anyone who would listen that he was going to expose Maria as a fraud. Several of his friends were cheering him on, making jokes about putting women in their place. The rules were simple: 10 shots each at standard military targets at 800 meters. The shooting would be done from a supported prone position, with each shooter allowed to zero their rifle with 3 practice shots. The person with the highest total score would be declared the winner. Chief Williams served as the official judge, with 2 other instructors spotting and scoring the targets. The range was completely silent except for the sound of wind moving through the trees behind the firing line. Coleman won the coin toss and chose to shoot first. He took his time with his practice shots, making adjustments to his scope and getting comfortable with his position. His practice group was decent, though not exceptional. When it was time for his official shots, Coleman settled into his shooting position and began his string. His first shot hit the target but was slightly off-center. His second was better. By his 5th shot, he had found his rhythm and was shooting consistently. When Coleman finished his 10 shots, the spotters called out his hits. He had scored 87 out of a possible 100 points, which was a respectable score for the distance and conditions. Coleman stood up with a satisfied smile, clearly confident he had shot well enough to prove his point. Now it was Maria's time to shoot. As she walked to the firing line, she could hear whispers from the crowd. Some people were encouraging her, but others were making predictions about how she would choke under pressure. Maria lay down behind her rifle and looked through the scope at the distant target. Everything else faded away. The crowd, the whispers, the pressure, even Coleman's challenging stare. This was familiar territory for her. The quiet space where only she, her rifle, and the target existed. Her practice shots were precise and consistent, grouping tightly in the center of the target. She made a minor adjustment to her scope and was ready for her official string. The first shot felt perfect the moment she squeezed the trigger. The rifle recoiled smoothly and she quickly reacquired the target for her second shot. Each shot flowed naturally into the next, with Maria controlling her breathing and trigger squeeze with mechanical precision. What the crowd didn't know was that Maria wasn't just shooting at a target 800 meters away. In her mind, she was back in the hills of Texas with her grandfather, using all the lessons he had taught her about patience, focus, and respect for the weapon. When Maria finished her 10th shot, she remained in position for a moment, running through each shot in her mind to make sure she hadn't made any obvious errors. Only then did she stand up and clear her rifle. The spotters were quiet as they examined her target through their high-powered scopes. Chief Williams walked downrange to personally verify the results. When he returned, his expression was neutral, but Maria could see something in his eyes that might have been amazement. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chief Williams announced to the gathered crowd, "Coleman's score was 87 out of 100, which is a solid performance at this distance." He paused for effect, building the suspense. Rodriguez scored 98 out of 100. 9 shots in the X-ring, 1 shot just outside center but still in the 10 ring. "This is the highest score I've seen from a student at this distance in 15 years of instruction." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her, not because she had won, but because she had proven that her abilities were real and earned through hard work and natural talent. Coleman's face went through several emotions: surprise, disappointment, and finally what looked like grudging respect. He walked over to Maria and extended his hand. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly so only she could hear. "That was some of the best shooting I've ever seen." "I was wrong about you." Maria shook his hand firmly. "Thank you for saying that. I hope we can move forward as teammates." The challenge had accomplished more than just settling a personal dispute. It had demonstrated to everyone at the school that Maria's abilities were exceptional and legitimate. More importantly, it had shown that she could perform under extreme pressure when everyone was watching and judging her. Chief Williams pulled Maria aside after the crowd began to disperse. "That was outstanding shooting, Rodriguez. I've already started the paperwork for your application to SEAL sniper training." Maria felt her heart skip a beat. "You really think I'm ready for that, Chief?" "Ready? I think you were born ready. But I want you to understand what you're getting into. SEAL training is going to make today look like a casual day at the range. They're going to test you physically, mentally, and emotionally in ways you can't imagine. And being the first woman to attempt the program is going to add another layer of pressure." "I understand, Chief, but I want to try." "Good, because the Navy needs shooters like you regardless of your gender. Just remember, you've already proven you belong here. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Over the following weeks, as Maria finished her Master-at-Arms training, word of her shooting performance spread throughout the Navy's Special Operations community. Some people were excited about the possibility of having such a talented marksman in their ranks. Others were skeptical about whether a woman could handle the complete package of skills required for SEAL operations. Maria tried to ignore both the praise and the criticism, focusing instead on preparing herself for the next phase of her journey. She knew that everything she had experienced so far, the doubt, the challenges, the pressure to prove herself, was just preparation for what lay ahead. When her orders came through for SEAL sniper training, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and determination. She was about to attempt something no woman had ever accomplished before. The odds were stacked against her, and she would face skepticism and resistance from day one. But as she packed her gear and prepared to report to her new assignment, Maria thought about all the people who had believed in her along the way. Her grandfather, her parents, Chief Williams, and even some of her classmates who had started as doubters but became supporters. She was ready to show the world that exceptional shooting ability had nothing to do with gender, and everything to do with skill, dedication, and the willingness to push beyond what others thought was possible. The Naval Special Warfare Command training facility in Coronado, California, was intimidating in a way that nothing had prepared Maria for. The compound buzzed with an energy that was different from any other military installation she had experienced. These were the training grounds where America's most elite warriors were forged, and the atmosphere reflected that reality. Maria reported for SEAL sniper training on a Monday morning in September. The Pacific Ocean crashed against the nearby beaches, providing a constant soundtrack that would become familiar over the coming months. As she checked in with the administrative office, she could feel the stares of everyone around her. The news of her assignment had preceded her arrival. She was not just another student reporting for sniper training. She was the first woman ever to attempt the program. Some people looked at her with curiosity, others with skepticism, and a few with what appeared to be outright hostility. Her class consisted of 24 candidates, all of them experienced military personnel who had already proven themselves in combat or specialized training. They came from various branches of the military: Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marine Scout snipers, and a few Air Force Special Operations personnel. When Maria walked into the classroom for their first briefing, the conversation stopped immediately. 23 pairs of eyes focused on her as she found an empty seat in the back row. The silence was broken when one of the instructors entered the room. Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison was a legend in the Special Operations community. He had served multiple combat deployments as a SEAL sniper and had been credited with some of the longest-range kills in modern warfare. His reputation for being demanding and uncompromising was well known throughout the military. "Welcome to SEAL sniper training," Morrison began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had been in countless life-or-death situations. "Over the next 12 weeks, we're going to push you beyond what you think is possible. Some of you will succeed. Most of you will not." He paused to scan the room, his eyes lingering on Maria for a moment longer than the others. "I don't care what branch of service you come from. I don't care what your previous experience is, and I don't care about your gender. The only thing that matters here is whether you can meet the standard. The enemy doesn't care about your background when they're trying to kill you or the people you're protecting. This statement was clearly directed at the entire class, but Maria knew it was particularly relevant to her situation. Morrison was establishing from the beginning that she would be held to exactly the same standards as everyone else. The first few days of training were designed to assess each student's baseline abilities. They were tested on basic marksmanship, physical fitness, land navigation, and combat skills. Maria performed well in all areas, but it was her shooting that immediately set her apart from the other candidates. During their initial marksmanship evaluation, students were required to engage targets at various distances up to 1,000 meters. Maria's performance was flawless, achieving perfect or near-perfect scores at every distance. Her consistency and precision impressed even the instructors, though they were careful not to show favoritism. Some of her classmates were genuinely amazed by her shooting ability. Sergeant First Class David Kim, an Army Ranger with combat experience in Afghanistan, approached her after the evaluation. "That was incredible shooting," he said admiringly. "I've seen a lot of good marksmen in my time, but your precision is on another level." However, not everyone was as accepting. Staff Sergeant Rick Hardy, a Marine Scout sniper, made his feelings clear during a break between training exercises. "I don't care how well she can shoot at targets," Hardy said to a group of other students. "This is supposed to be about combat effectiveness. How is she going to handle carrying a wounded teammate? How is she going to react when someone is shooting back at her?" These questions reflected concerns that many people had about women in combat roles. Even though Maria had proven her marksmanship abilities repeatedly, there were still doubts about her ability to handle the other aspects of sniper operations. The training intensified quickly. Students learned advanced ballistics, meteorology, camouflage and concealment, stalking techniques, and observation skills. They were pushed physically and mentally, with long days that often extended late into the night. Maria excelled in most areas of training, but she did face some challenges. The physical demands were significant, and while she was in excellent shape, some of the larger male students had advantages in terms of raw strength and size. When it came to carrying heavy equipment over long distances, she had to work harder than others to keep up. During a particularly challenging exercise involving a 12-mile movement with full combat gear, Maria began to fall behind the main group. The weight of the specialized sniper rifle, ammunition, communications equipment, and survival gear was taking its toll on her smaller frame. Hardy, who had been critical of her presence in the program, surprised everyone by dropping back to check on her. "You doing okay back here?" he asked. "I'm fine," Maria replied, though it was clear she was struggling with the load. Without saying another word, Hardy took some of the heavier items from her pack and added them to his own. "We succeed or fail as a team," he said simply. This gesture marked a turning point in how some of the other students viewed Maria. They began to see her not as an outsider trying to prove a point, but as a teammate who was genuinely committed to the mission and willing to push herself beyond her limits. Master Chief Morrison observed these dynamics carefully. During a private evaluation session, he pulled Maria aside to discuss her progress. "Your shooting is exceptional, Rodriguez. Probably the best I've seen in 15 years of instruction," he began. "But sniping is about more than just accurate shooting. It's about being part of a team, operating in hostile environments, and making life or death decisions under extreme pressure." "I understand that, Master Chief. I'm working hard on all aspects of the training." "I can see that, and I can also see that your classmates are starting to accept you as part of the team. But the real test is coming up. Next week we start the final evaluation phase, where you'll be tested in realistic combat scenarios." Maria knew this would be the ultimate test of everything she had learned. The final evaluation would involve complex missions that required not just shooting accuracy, but tactical thinking, teamwork, and the ability to perform under extreme stress. As she prepared for the final phase of training, Maria reflected on how far she had come from that small town in Texas. She had faced doubt and criticism at every step, but she had also found supporters and teammates who believed in her abilities. The most challenging part of her journey was still ahead, but Maria felt ready to prove that she belonged among America's most elite military snipers. She had the skills, the determination, and the support of teammates who had learned to respect her dedication and abilities. The final evaluation would determine whether she became the first woman to complete SEAL sniper training, but regardless of the outcome, she had already proven that exceptional marksmanship transcends traditional boundaries and expectations. The final evaluation phase of SEAL sniper training began with a sobering briefing from Master Chief Morrison. The remaining 18 students, 6 had already been eliminated from the program, sat in a dimly lit classroom as he outlined what would be expected of them over the next 2 weeks. Everything you've learned up to this point has been preparation for what comes next, Morrison began. You'll be tested in realistic combat scenarios that will push you to your absolute limits. These exercises are designed to simulate the conditions you'll face in actual operations, where failure means people die. Maria felt her heart rate increase as Morrison continued his briefing. She had performed well throughout the training, but she knew that the final evaluation was where many promising candidates failed. The first exercise took place in the mountains of Southern California, where students were divided into 2-person sniper teams and given a complex mission. Each team was required to infiltrate a designated area, establish a hidden observation post, and engage multiple targets at various distances while avoiding detection by opposing forces. Maria was paired with Sergeant Kim, the Army Ranger who had supported her from early in the training. Their assignment was to eliminate 3 high-value targets at ranges between 800 and 1,200 meters, then extract to a pickup point 5 miles away without being captured. The mission began before dawn, with the 2 teams moving through rugged terrain in complete darkness. Maria and Kim had spent hours studying topographical maps and planning their route to avoid predictable paths that might be monitored by the opposing force. As they approached their target area, Kim whispered, "There's a perfect overwatch position about 400 meters up that ridge. Good concealment, multiple escape routes, and clear lines of sight to all the target buildings." Maria studied the area through her spotting scope. "I see it. But look at that dead space between here and there. If they have patrols in the area, we'll be completely exposed for about 50 meters." They decided to wait and observe the area for an hour before making their move. Maria's patience and attention to detail, skills she had learned from her grandfather years earlier, proved valuable as they identified 2 roving patrols that would have detected them if they had moved immediately. When they finally reached their shooting position, Maria began setting up her rifle while Kim established communication with their command post and began identifying targets through his spotting scope. "I've got visual on target 1, Kim whispered. "Range 847 meters, slight crosswind from the left." Maria adjusted her scope and found the target through her sight picture. It was a mannequin dressed in military gear, positioned to simulate a high-value enemy commander. The shot required precise calculation to account for the distance, wind, and the slight upward angle. She controlled her breathing, feeling the familiar calm that came over her during precision shooting. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed off the surrounding hills. Through her scope, she could see that her shot had hit the target center mass. "Perfect hit," Kim confirmed. "Target 2 is in the building to your right, about 950 meters. This target was partially concealed behind a window, requiring Maria to thread her bullet through a narrow opening. The wind had picked up slightly since her first shot, adding another variable to her calculations. Her second shot was equally precise, striking the target cleanly. But immediately after firing, they heard voices in the distance. The opposing force was responding to their shots and beginning a search of the area. "We need to move," Kim said urgently. "They'll triangulate our position if we stay here much longer." Target 3 was located 200 meters away, at the maximum range for their mission. Maria would have to make this shot quickly before they were forced to abandon their position. As she lined up the shot, Maria could hear vehicles starting up in the distance. The opposing force was mobilizing to hunt for them, and they had only minutes before the area would be swarming with searchers. The target was barely visible at that distance, appearing as little more than a dark shape against the building where it was positioned. The wind was gusty and unpredictable, making accurate range estimation critical. Maria took her time despite the pressure, using all her training to calculate the perfect aim point. When she fired, there was a long moment of silence before Kim could confirm the hit through his spotting scope. "Target down. That's all 3. We need to get out of here now." They quickly packed their equipment and began moving toward their extraction point. The route took them through dense forest and across several exposed ridgelines, all while avoiding the increasing number of opposing force personnel who were searching for them. At one point, they had to hide in a small cave while a patrol passed within 20 meters of their position. Maria controlled her breathing and remained perfectly still, drawing on the patience and discipline that had become second nature to her. After 6 hours of careful movement, they reached their extraction point without being detected. As they waited for pickup, Kim looked at Maria with obvious respect. "Those were 3 of the best shots I've ever seen under operational conditions," he said. "That 200-meter shot in those wind conditions was incredible." When they returned to the training facility, Master Chief Morrison was waiting to debrief each team. Maria and Kim had successfully completed their mission, but so had several other teams. The real test would be how consistently she could perform under different conditions. Over the next week, the remaining students faced increasingly difficult scenarios. They practiced urban sniping from buildings, shooting from helicopters, and engaging targets while under simulated enemy fire. Each exercise was designed to test not just shooting accuracy but decision-making, teamwork, and grace under pressure. Maria excelled in every exercise. Her shooting remained consistently accurate regardless of the conditions, and she demonstrated excellent tactical thinking and leadership abilities. More importantly, she had earned the respect of her classmates and instructors through her professionalism and dedication. During the final exercise, students were presented with a complex scenario involving hostage rescue. They had to engage multiple targets simultaneously, while ensuring the safety of friendly forces and innocent civilians. It was the most challenging test of precision shooting under pressure that any of them had ever faced. Maria was assigned to engage a target at 500 meters, the longest shot of the entire training program. The target was positioned near a group of mannequins representing hostages, requiring absolute precision to avoid hitting the wrong target. As she prepared for the shot, Maria thought about all the people who had doubted her ability to reach this moment. She thought about her grandfather's lessons about patience and respect for the weapon. Most of all, she thought about proving that excellence has no gender. The shot felt perfect the moment she squeezed the trigger. Through her scope, she watched her bullet strike the target exactly where she had aimed. Around her, the other students and instructors had successfully completed their portions of the exercise as well. When the final scores were tallied, Maria had achieved the highest overall marks in the class. She had not just completed the program, she had excelled in it, demonstrating that her shooting abilities were among the best the military had ever seen. But even more important than her personal achievement was what she had proven about the potential for women in combat roles. She had shown that with the right training, dedication, and support, barriers that seemed insurmountable could be overcome. As she prepared for graduation from the program, Maria knew that her journey was far from over. The real test would come when she was deployed in actual combat operations, where her skills would be put to the ultimate test in life-or-death situations. 6 months after graduation from SEAL sniper training, Petty Officer First Class Maria Rodriguez found herself deployed to Afghanistan with Task Force Neptune, an elite special operations unit conducting high-priority missions against enemy leadership. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, but Maria had adapted quickly to operating in one of the world's most dangerous combat zones. Her reputation had preceded her arrival in theater. Word of the first woman to complete SEAL sniper training had spread throughout the special operations community, creating both anticipation and skepticism among the units she would be supporting. Commander Sarah Mitchell, the task force intelligence officer, briefed Maria's team on their latest mission during a pre-dawn meeting at their forward operating base. The target was a high-value enemy commander who had been responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. Intelligence indicates that Ahmad Nazir will be meeting with his cell leaders at this compound tomorrow morning, Mitchell explained, pointing to satellite imagery displayed on a large screen. The meeting is scheduled for 800 hours, which gives us a narrow window of opportunity. The compound was located in a remote valley approximately 15 kilometers from their base. The target building was surrounded by rough terrain that would make approach and extraction challenging. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan, Maria's team leader and a veteran SEAL operator, studied the imagery carefully. "What's the range from the nearest concealed position to the target building?" Approximately 3,200 meters, Mitchell replied. It's an extremely long shot even for our best snipers. Maria felt her pulse quicken. A 3,200-meter shot would be at the absolute limit of what was considered possible with their equipment and ammunition. It would require perfect conditions and flawless execution. Rodriguez, Sullivan said, turning to Maria. What's your assessment? Can you make that shot? Maria studied the terrain and weather data carefully before responding. It's at the edge of the rifle's effective range, sir. Wind will be the biggest factor at that distance, along with the temperature differential between the valley floor and our shooting position. But yes, if conditions are right, I can make the shot. Some of the other team members exchanged glances. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson, an experienced SEAL who had initially been skeptical of Maria's assignment to the unit, spoke up. That's a hell of a long shot, Rodriguez. Are you sure you want to stake the mission on it? Maria met his gaze steadily. I've been training for this moment my entire career. Chief, I won't let the team down. The mission launched at 400 hours, with Maria's sniper team moving toward their overwatch position, while an assault team positioned themselves for a backup plan in case the long-range shot wasn't feasible. The approach took them through 3 hours of difficult terrain in complete darkness. As they reached their shooting position, Maria began setting up her rifle while her spotter, Petty Officer Second Class Alex Rivera, established communications and began gathering environmental data. The position offered excellent concealment and a clear line of sight to the target compound, but the distance was daunting even for someone with Maria's abilities. Range confirmed at 3,187 meters, Rivera whispered as he worked with his laser rangefinder and ballistic computer. Wind is variable between 8 and 12 knots from the northwest. Temperature at target area is estimated 15 degrees warmer than our position. Maria began making the complex calculations required for such an extreme range shot. She had to account for bullet drop, wind drift, the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation, and atmospheric conditions that would affect her bullet's flight path over the nearly 2-mile distance. At 0750 hours, Rivera spotted movement at the target compound through his high-powered spotting scope. I've got personnel arriving at the compound. Multiple vehicles. Looks like the meeting is about to begin. Maria settled into her shooting position, controlling her breathing and allowing her heart rate to slow. Through her rifle scope, the target building appeared impossibly small and distant. She would have to rely on all her training and instincts to make this shot. I have positive identification on the primary target, Rivera reported. Nazir just exited the lead vehicle and is walking toward the building entrance. This was the moment Maria had been preparing for throughout her entire career. Everything she had learned from her grandfather, every challenge she had overcome, every doubt she had faced, had led to this critical shot. She adjusted her scope for the final wind reading and settled her crosshairs on the target. At this distance, even the slightest error in calculation or execution would result in a complete miss. Maria controlled her breathing, feeling the familiar calm that came over her during precision shooting. She had learned to trust her instincts and training, even in the most high-pressure situations. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed across the valley. For what seemed like an eternity, Maria maintained her sight picture, watching through her scope as the bullet traveled its long arc toward the target. Hit, Rivera confirmed quietly. Target is down. That's a kill. The shot had found its mark perfectly, eliminating the high-value target at a distance that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in sniper operations. More importantly, it had prevented the meeting that could have resulted in future attacks against coalition forces. As they prepared to extract from their position, Rivera looked at Maria with obvious amazement. That was the most incredible shot I've ever witnessed. The precision required at that distance is just unbelievable. Word of Maria's record-setting shot spread rapidly throughout the special operations community. The 3,200-meter kill was not just a personal achievement, but a new benchmark for precision shooting under combat conditions. When they returned to base, Commander Mitchell was waiting to debrief the mission. Outstanding work, Rodriguez. That shot is going to be talked about for years to come. But for Maria, the significance of the shot went beyond setting records or gaining recognition. It represented the culmination of a journey that had begun in the hills of Texas with her grandfather, continued through years of facing doubt and skepticism, and finally reached its pinnacle in the mountains of Afghanistan. Chief Thompson, who had questioned her abilities before the mission, approached her as she was cleaning her rifle. "I owe you an apology, Rodriguez. I had my doubts, but what you accomplished today was extraordinary. You've earned my complete respect." Over the following months, Maria continued to serve with distinction in Afghanistan, participating in dozens of successful missions and further establishing her reputation as one of the military's most capable snipers. But it was that 200-meter shot that would define her legacy and prove once and for all that exceptional marksmanship knows no boundaries. When Maria finally returned home from deployment, she was awarded the Navy Cross for her actions in Afghanistan. During the ceremony, her grandfather sat in the front row, tears streaming down his face as he watched his granddaughter receive one of the military's highest honors. "You did it, Maria," he whispered as he embraced her after the ceremony. "You showed the world what we always knew, that you were meant for greatness." Maria's journey from a small-town girl who faced mockery for her unconventional interest to one of the military's most accomplished snipers had proven that with determination, skill, and unwavering belief in oneself, any barrier can be overcome. Her 200-meter shot had not just made history, it had inspired countless others to pursue their dreams regardless of the obstacles in their path.